We hope that that continues. Whether that continues really depends on the behavior of Coloradans. Our challenge, I think we've hit a bit of a balance here. The way that you've lived the last week, the last 2 weeks, that's what we have to have inside of us for the long haul. That's how we have to live for the next few months, the way that we've been living the last few weeks. Not the way that our July went, more like the way our May went, but it really depends on those decisions. So really, only about 20% of our success as a state depends on these policies, like the last call at 10 p.m. and wearing masks. The other 80% really is individual responsibility and behavior. And so Coloradans are doing the right thing. I think last time, meaning in May, early June, when we were doing the right thing, people said, oh, phew, we can breathe out and we can relax, and then that led to a resurgence. We cannot do that. We simply have to look at the last week or two as the model of how we live our lives for the next few months. The virus has a reproductive value of right around 1, maybe a little below, maybe a little above, meaning everybody who gets it, it roughly goes to one person. It is at a relatively stable place, which in the environment of where we are is something that is well within our hospital capacity. In fact, hospitalizations are slightly down. In the last week, we have 202 people with coronavirus hospitalized. And because of that hard work, we're really able to have a more sustainable way to move forward. And just because we are plateauing doesn't mean we're still not in a very precarious position. It's like a boulder sitting on top of a hill. You know, one wrong move and it could go into a rock slide off the end. So we're glad cases are not increasing in a higher amount every day. We hope that they decrease. It's too early to say whether they're decreasing. We have 2 or 3 days of decreasing, but we really need to see whether that continues. But we really need to look at how we each have the decisions we've each made in the last 2 weeks, how we've lived our lives, and just have the gumption to be able to be in this for the long haul, for several months. Find a way to live where we don't give the virus the ability to replicate in a way that exceeds our medical capacity or unnecessarily costs human life and further damages the economy in our state. I think that is how the result of the decisions that you've made the last couple of weeks, but we just have to keep that up. We can't ease off. We've been through this once. People eased up a little bit. It resurged. We have to continue to be not anxious, not fearful, but cautious. Wear masks, stay 6 feet from others, limit social interactions is really what we need to be able to do to be able to stay safe. And because of that hard work that we've been doing and avoiding others and not partying and not going out and hanging out with small groups and wearing masks, because of that work, we're in a better place today. And one of the, the last official high school sports competition was March 12th. I was glad that CHSAA announced today that they are going to get every high school sport in this season. And I plan to attend the very first high school sports competition when that occurs. We hope in the coming weeks, the first one since March 12th. Really a important milestone for high school athletes. Now, just like professional athletes, which we're all watching, and Rockies, and just like college athletics, it's not going to look like any other season. Obviously, if there's a coronavirus outbreak on a team or at a school, there will be scheduling changes, there will be games missed. But at least for that meaningful experience that sports brings, just as we had a great experience with youth sports over summer, we had many kids were playing baseball, tennis over summer in organized youth sports. I'm glad that the high school youth sports are going to be back. I'm glad that they are able to do every sport. And of course, just like professional sports, it's not going to be like every other season, but they will have their championships. They will have their shortened seasons. They will have their practices, and the kids will be able to participate in that. And that's really an important part of our society. And I plan to be there for the first one. And I want to applaud CHSAA for moving forward with youth sports in high school for this year in Colorado in a safe way. To make sure that we can engage youth and we do it in a way that doesn't jeopardize a major setback for our state with regard to where we are with coronavirus. You know, it's a challenging time for everybody across society, and I think it's important as we embrace what we can and really find the things that we treasure in life that will allow us to get through the next few months, doing the things we love, but doing them in a different way. Because there are two ways this virus wins. One way is we get it, it makes you very sick, it kills some of us, we're hospitalized, it destroys our health and our lives. The other way is it destroys our spirit. We can't let it destroy our lives to save our spirit. We also can't let it destroy our spirit just to save our lives. And so being able to do things in a reasonably safe way, making sure we have high school basketball, football, golf, maybe not with all the fans there, able to watch, maybe televised, maybe some people there. It's reasonably safe for the students. Learning is occurring in our schools. Some are hybrid model. Some are starting out virtually and then going back. Some are already back. Aguilar School District's already back. And as you know, we're sending medical quality masks to every teacher in our state. And for those who aren't back yet, they'll be able to stockpile those. And we can't let it defeat your spirit. Whatever it is that you like to do, are there sacrifices? Yes. If your thing is nightclubs and parties, you might have to have 3 friends over and turn on that disco at home and dance the night away. And I'm not saying that in a frivolous way. I get that that's a sacrifice for you. I'd love to be in the stands at Coors Field watching the Rockies. We're having a good season so far, and I hope that they're able to complete the season. I hope they're able to. I hope there's a postseason. But we can't come together physically in those ways right now. So these are the sacrifices that we make to retain our spirit. And I'm glad that Major League Baseball is occurring. I'm glad that high school sports are occurring, because they're an important part of who we are. And just as all of the activities across our economy and culture are. And we adapt and we do things in new and safer ways. And I think that the balance of the last couple weeks, week or two, is what we need to be prepared to live that way for several months. Hopefully minimizing disruptions to school and sports and our jobs, and being able to enjoy ourselves and live a fulfilling life while humanity tackles with and ultimately defeats this virus. We certainly hope vaccinations end of this year, early next year. We're hopeful that progress will come to fruition, and that many of these vaccines now in clinical trials, including right here in Colorado, will show strong efficacy that will allow us to really regain our full lives. So we cannot let this virus defeat us and destroy our health and our lives. We also cannot let this virus defeat our spirit. And I certainly applaud CHSAA for bringing high school sports back in a safe way. And I look forward to being there in a socially distanced way, wearing a mask, cheering on the very first competition in the state of Colorado since March 12th. And while by and large Coloradans are making good decisions, that's borne out by the data, we still see occasionally, and I know we all focus on it, but we still see dangerous super spreader activity, like the actions in Weld County where several thousand people assembled. The Attorney General's office issued a cease and desist letter to live entertainment. As Dr. Birx likes to say, it's not about a person being a super spreader. The event is a super spreading event. Anybody contagious with coronavirus in the right event and social situation is a super spreader. It's not the person, it's the environment. So it's guaranteed that an event with 5,000 people probably has, in our state, several people who are contagious with coronavirus just by the laws of statistics, and that several will spread to dozens or hundreds. That's why we have to be careful about these super spreading events. Now, under current guidelines, outdoor venues can host 175 people with social distancing and 6 feet between parties. And clearly that's not what we saw in the videos from the live entertainment event. And the Attorney General's office has also previously sent cease and desist orders to other organizers and promoters as well. So many times, and we don't always see it when these things work, but Dixian music, Imperial horse racing, to stop illegal activities and prevent super spreading events. We certainly can't allow the actions of a few thousand Coloradans to jeopardize all of our lives. People who put themselves at risk aren't just putting themselves at risk. They're putting their families, their neighbors, and their communities at risk, and we cannot stand for that. I also want to make sure that buyers should be aware. People should know that they should not be buying tickets to these events, which will likely be canceled or closed by public health orders, and you could lose your money. And we're worried about Coloradans being ripped off, thinking that events are going to move forward, only to find that the events are canceled. And we don't want Coloradans scammed out of their money when events are shut down. Now, I want to switch gears from folks who are spreading COVID-19 to those who are helping. And I want to thank everybody who's contributed to our COVID relief fund, helpcoloradonow.org. Our relief fund has raised over $22 million. And we don't sit on it. It goes right out the door. Over $16.4 million has gone out the door to 700 organizations, nonprofits, serving all 64 counties in our state. Starting on Thursday of this week, the COVID Relief Fund is accepting applications for the 6th round of funding. Organizations need to apply by August 20th at helpcoloradonow.org. And community-based organizations in Colorado helping renters, helping with health care, helping with daycare for kids can get grants of up to $25,000. I visited several of the recipients of these grants across our state. And we're also proud of the funding from Kaiser Permanente and IKEA, most recently, 2 very significant contributions to the COVID Relief Fund. So if you're an individual or corporation or nonprofit watching, please check out helpcoloradonow.org. Help us if you can. And, of all the difficult stories of those super spreading events in our state, there's far more Coloradans doing the right thing. And we know that by the numbers, by the fact that our cases have plateaued, are slightly down. Colorado is doing better than many other states. And that if we can live the way we've lived in the last 2 weeks for the next few months, we should be fine. And we hope that we can take additional steps to live in a more sustainable way. We also know that coronavirus has far-reaching implications across all of our diverse communities in Colorado, and we're doing everything we can to reach communities in Colorado that speak many different languages. Obviously, our most widely spoken language after English is Spanish. And tonight, I'm delighted to take part in a Univision town hall, a live town hall on Univision to discuss Colorado's response to COVID-19 in Espanol. We'll be taking questions, and we will be talking about really all of the great work for a full half hour live on Univision. So please tune in to Univision, si habla en español, and you'll hear some of our additional outreach to folks whose primary language is different than English. We also have another piece of good news. I want to thank the President for renewing the National Guard through December. Our Colorado National Guard has been doing an amazing job in this crisis. They've tested over 20,000 Coloradans. That's a significant contribution to our total of about over 500,000 Coloradans tested. The Colorado National Guard has been instrumental in our work to protect people, protect our nursing homes and senior centers. And initially, of course, I was very critical that they were going to end the deployment early. I'm very glad. I spoke to the Vice President over the weekend. I'm glad that the administration continues the National Guard's deployment through the end of the year. And I want to give a heartfelt thank you to the brave men and women of the Colorado National Guard for their amazing work in this crisis. I also want to reflect on the lives that we've lost. 1,710 Coloradans have succumbed to COVID-19. 849 have died with COVID-19. And each one is a brother, sister, mother, father, friend, son, daughter, and whatever sacrifices that people are making, not partying, not hanging out with a lot of others, limiting their social activity. I want us to have the memory of those that we've lost in our hearts and in our minds, and let that strengthen our resolve to not lose more Coloradans unnecessarily. When these very simple, common sense steps, like wearing a mask, staying home and not going out when you can, staying 6 feet from others in your social interactions, and having a small group rather than a large group, rather than a neighborhood block party, have a barbecue with one neighbor, right? One neighbor's family. Not the way we choose to live our lives in normal times. I get it. We want to have a neighborhood block party. We want to go clubbing all night. We want to have the entire hundreds of people or thousands of people watching a high school sports team. But in the scheme of things, that's a modest sacrifice. And of course, we're talking to people of all ages here, but in particular, we've seen, and by the way, we've seen a decrease as well in the numbers of people in their 20s and 30s, and we think that's, again, partially attributable to the last call time at 10. But in the scheme of things, for young people in their 20s and 30s, I know that what we're asking of you isn't easy, but it's important to put it in perspective that it is easier than what has been asked of Americans in their 20s and 30s at different times in our history. In my parents' time, many of my father's friends were called to serve in Vietnam. Many lost their lives. In World War II, our nation mobilized, and 20-somethings across our entire country put on our nation's uniform, went off to war, and too many didn't come back. What we need to achieve here to defeat this enemy, to defeat this virus and not let it destroy our health or our spirit, is to be smart, avoid large groups, and wear a mask where we can. We need to avoid hanging out in large groups and parties, private, public. Just hang out with a few friends. Might not be your preference, but it is absolutely critical for the success of Colorado and for the success of America. And I know that we are all on the side of America against this virus. So in your decisions, make sure in everything you do that you're choosing the right side so that we can win in Colorado, so that we can win in the United States of America, and that we can continue to move forward rather than backward and save lives. Thank you, and we'll be happy to take some questions. Phone, please.
Yes, Governor Polis, it's David Clue at Denver 7. I want to get your response to the latest controversy for the Aurora Police Department. A family of black women and children this past weekend were mistakenly pulled over and pulled out of a minivan, handcuffed and laid down in a hot parking lot for as long as 10 minutes. Can I get your reaction to that? And also, where are we as a state when it comes to the police reform we've been promised?
Well, it was horrible and painful to watch that. As a father of children of similar ages, I could only imagine it was, my daughter, who also likes to wear princess crowns, traumatized by that encounter, which was a incorrect identification by the Aurora Police Department. The Aurora Police Department has a new chief. I think, and I hope that she knows the work ahead in transparency, in rebuilding community trust that many feel has been breached. It's just heartbreaking to see. And of course, we need to do everything in our power to foster confidence and trust in law enforcement, and for law enforcement to take that step to regain the trust of communities that events like this further erode. Room?
Governor, I wonder if there's anything that you think the state should be doing more to help parents navigate through, returning to school or whether or not, and if there's anything that can be done to kind of address this equity gap that's arising between people who have money to pay for the pods and those who have to send their kids back to work because they don't have money to.
Lots of difficult choices for parents. And by the way, even for athletes, we talked about CHSAA earlier. I know many parents of athletes and many athletes themselves who are going to choose not to participate this season because they could be putting an elderly grandparent that lives with them at risk, or they might have a parent with a pre-existing condition. So while I'm happy that every season will occur in some way, doesn't mean it's for everybody. And some kids will be making that sacrifice. I as a former high school varsity baseball player myself, I know the importance of youth sports. And this year, while they will be offered, I know that not everybody who wants to participate will feel safe participating, and that's a valid decision. Same with schools. Some people in areas where schools are going back aren't ready to go back. And they are not limited in Colorado to their district's online program. They can choose any online program in our state. They can choose a different district's online program. They can enroll in online charter schools that have been operating online long before the coronavirus pandemic. So there are many choices, and every parent is empowered to make the choices that make sense for them. And while some districts are back in a hybrid way, parents who don't feel comfortable sending their kids back can start out online. Other districts are back full-time. Parents can start out in different ways. So there's lots of choices that parents have to make. What's best for one child isn't necessarily what's best for another. Parents know their children's best. And I encourage parents to really look at the broad diversity of choices that exist in public education in Colorado and find the option that works best for them and their families.
So if you have parents who are trying to go to a different school district to get their online learning, how does the funding equal out there?
Yeah, we've always had open enrollment in Colorado. I think that it's quite possible this year there will be more open enrollment than in previous years, but it always exists. I strongly support it. I mean, in some states you actually have to attend school in the district that you're in. In our state, you can attend school anywhere. So it's geographically effectively constrained for in-person school. I mean, a parent isn't realistically going to drive their kids 2 hours to go to school. But many families in Colorado, like if you're in Adams County where there's a number of school districts, or Weld, you can certainly look for a school that's 15 minutes away and might be in a different district if you're not happy with what's going on in yours. But the statewide online programs, some are run by districts, some are charter schools. Those have been available for well over a decade. And I think they will see increased enrollment this year because many of them are really effective at being able to reach kids and for parents who aren't ready to send their kids back. And obviously they generally look at their online program of their own district first. But if they're not satisfied with that, they might look to homeschooling or to another online school.
Governor Polis, this is Benny Del Chudice of Bloomberg News in Denver. A political question. What do you make of the president's objection to mail-in voting in the midst of a pandemic that has claimed 150,000 lives nationwide? Thank you.
Well, anybody from Colorado sort of thinks it's bizarre when people talk about how mail-in voting isn't a good thing. Because here we have a broad bipartisan consensus that mail-in elections work. We've been doing it for decades, right? I mean, it became the default for, after the 2012 election in 2013. But most of us, the majority of Coloradans voted via mail and drop ballots even before that. I was even trying to remember whether I can even recall in my life going to a polling place. I think I have when I was very young, but really in all the elections I remember, I vote via mail. Because I had one requested even before it became the default, as I think a majority of Coloradans did. So we do it. It's more secure. It's easier to access. It's safer. It's more efficient. You don't have to worry about lines at the polling place. And I'm glad that we do offer the in-person voting too. I mean, for people who lose their ballot, don't get their ballot, or just really want to vote in person, I think it's, maybe 0.8% or something, but they're able to do that. And we do have ability to vote, early voting on election day. But for most Coloradans who live busy lives, especially with all the complex initiatives on the ballot, we like to get our ballot, we like to research it, we like to fill it out, and then we drop it off in a Dropbox. So it works great, and I would encourage other states to look at the success of the way that we run elections in Colorado.
Mr. Governor, Charles Ashby from the Grand Junction Daily Sentinel. I was going to ask you about CHSAA, but now I don't have to, so thank you for addressing that. So I'll just move on. The Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission just announced today that they're increasing their mill levy to help cover their operating costs because of cutting fees and revenues that they've gotten. This comes on the heels of a bill that was passed in the legislature this year that you signed back in June that increased the fees for air emission permits. Question, do you think it's an appropriate time to be raising fees on an industry that, given this bad economy and what's going on in that particular market?
Well, I do know that there's certainly a conversation that they've had with industry about that. And for permitting, people want quick turnaround. And for quick turnaround to occur, they need to have the staff to process applications. So I don't think that this is viewed by the industry or by anybody else as adversarial. It's viewed as a way to have the staff they need to process permitting quicker. and I think that that's an important part of their mission. So absent general fund funding, absent funding from other sources, to be able to make sure that they can have quicker turnaround on permitting is really in everybody's best interest.
So, Governor, looking ahead to the fall, what would you say is the most important element of making progress on the virus? Is it testing? Is it supplies? I mean, how are we going to get where they're going down?
Well, it's really, it's interesting because I always, we have said from the very start is our goal is to make sure we don't exceed our healthcare capacity and to be able to maintain. We cannot, unlike New Zealand and Taiwan, there's no path that we've ever seen to eliminating the virus in Colorado because it'll be brought back the next day when hundreds of thousands of people from other states come. And we have succeeded in that. We are succeeding in that if Coloradans continue to live this way. And the plan would be for this success to continue, meaning I think today 426 new cases. We're down to 202 hospitalizations. If that's where we are, then Colorado is more successful than most states, which means that we've been able to earn the ability to grow our economy, go back to school, live in an environment that's reasonably safe until there's a vaccine or cure, and then we can really fully regain our lives and the full socialization that we expect with them. I'm not sure I answered it, so please ask again exactly what you mean.
Right. So would you expect for people to be prepared to be kind of living like they have been for the last, I don't know what you said, a couple of weeks, for months ahead?
Yeah. The way that we've lived the last few weeks, we need to be prepared to live for the next few months. The way we lived in late June, early July was not sustainable. We were on a path where the virus was doubling for a few weeks. It's now plateaued, even going down. We're able to enjoy most of the things that we love, except for large events and drinking at night. And I know that people want to drink at night. People want to have large events. I want to have large events. I don't want to drink at night, but I want to have large events. I want to go to the Rockies game. And that's where we want to get. But right now, we're successfully managing this. People are wearing masks. We're one of the highest states in terms of mask usage. We were from the low 70s. We went to the 90s with our mask wearing requirement. Coloradans are taking this seriously, and we need to continue to take it seriously for the next few months to be able to continue to lead our lives, and grow our economy.
In-person school?
Well, there are some districts, I talked about that earlier. I talked about the broad scope of what districts are doing. I think the first school district in Colorado in person is back, Aguilar School District in southern Colorado. Many districts are going in for 2 days a week starting soon. Other districts are starting out online and then going back in person. So it really just depends on where the virus is in each area and decisions they make. We are providing masks to every teacher in every school, medical grade masks once a week. And it's very understandable that educators and parents are nervous about going back to in-person school. That's one of the reasons that we purchased a medical grade mask for each week for every educator in the state. It's one of the reasons that we have strong public health guidance around what to do when there is a site-based outbreak at a school. And I'm proud of the progress our school districts and schools are making to protect educators and students. And we'll continue to work closely with them to make sure that we're keeping educators safe and students safe.
Hi, Governor. This is Joe Vaccarelli with Denver 7. I understand that CHSAA worked closely with your office regarding their they rolled out today. What do you feel were some of the determining factors that led to this rollout, and particularly moving some of the traditional fall sports such as football, soccer, volleyball to the spring? And then just the amount of time it took to reach this decision so close to school starting. Why do you think it took that long?
Yeah, so I'm relieved that the CHSAA has finalized their decision. I think you're seeing every state going through this now. We all want youth sports to occur, and it's figuring out how we can fit them all in so every kid gets that experience. Of course, in a way that isn't always the same as prior years, but all of the major sports competitions will occur. I look forward to attending the very first one since March 12th. Overall, we had a very positive experience with organized youth sports over summer. Participation rates were well down, and I expect participation rates in high school sports will be down. I mean, many kids, as we talked about, aren't ready, or their parents don't want them to be on a team, and I get that. But for the organized sports that occurred over summer across our state, T-ball, Little League, all the different sports, generally very positive experience, done well, done safely. I think through the auspices of school districts and CHSAA, there's even a higher level of professionalism and safety with regard to officially sanctioned school events. Not to be said that there won't be interruptions, just like there is in professional sports, just like there'll be in college sports, of course. There will be outbreaks. There will be teams that won't be able to participate for a period of time as they recuperate or are quarantined. And that's the world we live in, and that's the world we live in athletics at all levels. And high school is certainly no exception to that. But certainly I'm relieved that those the CHSAA guidelines are out. The planning can begin. I'm thrilled that kids will be able to participate in any of the sports that will occur this year. And they're going to do it in a way that makes it likely they'll be able to have as much uninterrupted of a season as possible. With regards to football, I think a lot of the concerns around doing it now was the increased likelihood of major interruptions in the season if it was done in the fall. I think all the football stakeholders and coaches really value, to the extent possible, an uninterrupted season. And nobody can guarantee that at any time, but I think that everybody felt better about the prospects for less interruptions under this configuration that CHSAA rolled out today.
Governor, two related things. First of all, a couple weeks ago you said you were interested in requiring the temporary relaxation of occupancy limit rules. Why hasn't that happened? Is it legal authority, or you just changed your mind? And then on a related note, the state property where people had the encampment have been cleared, both at the mansion and out front of the state capitol. Do you have any thoughts on where those people should go now, where you hope to see them go, and could that include you supporting them moving to any state-owned land?
Yeah, so we called upon local jurisdictions to lift their occupancy caps. I hope that some have. I know there's been a couple that in a high-profile way did not. Aurora and Boulder, unfortunately, did not. I don't have the full list of which have and haven't. But, of course, that's what local jurisdictions would do. Of course, if we had the authority, we would do it. And if there is some clever way that our lawyers can figure out where I do have that temporary authority to temporarily supersede the enforcement of those municipal laws, I would certainly exercise it. But to this point, I've not been informed of any authority that exists in that area, because that is part of the solution, part of the temporary solution for finding housing for folks who are less secure in their housing because of the coronavirus crisis. And I would point out, this is not to take sides in that long-term debate that the communities have about whether they should have occupancy limits or not. I'm not weighing in on that in 5 years, 10 years. This is about the crisis now. We're calling for the temporary suspension of those occupancy limits in housing. And I was disappointed to see Aurora and Boulder fail to move that way. And I feel that that has the potential to worsen the housing crisis that exists in our state. We are looking at everything we can do to partner with the city of Denver to help serve those who are experiencing homelessness, including the use of state land that might be appropriate for smaller facilities that can provide services in a better way to those experiencing homelessness.
Hi, Governor. Mary Ann Goodland with Colorado Politics. The Centers for Disease Control say that Latinos and Latinas in the 18 to 49 age group are hospitalized at more than twice the rate of white Americans. Given that the audience at the event in Weld County on the 26th was that exact age group, how do you intend to reach out to them to get them to cooperate with contact tracing, for example, when those cases start to surface?
Well, después de esta noticia, yo voy a hacer en Univision, in un town hall. After this presentation, I'm going to be on an Univision town hall. We are redoubling our efforts, Marianne, on Spanish language outreach. We routinely include questions from our Spanish media in these press conferences. I don't know if we had one today, probably because I'm doing the town hall next. They are not asking them here. We are going to redouble our efforts on Spanish radio. And we also launched recently our Gobernador Jared Polis Facebook page and Twitter account, pure Spanish language content. We feel that these are important ways to reach our predominantly Spanish-speaking community. And this is what's important. I mean, Colorado's in all this together. So when we say a 24-year-old who goes out to party isn't just taking a risk for themselves, that they may be willing to take. Again, we were all 24 once, and we also know the disease isn't as bad for 24-year-olds, and they may say, I value partying over that smaller risk to my health. But it is not just the decision they're making for themselves. They are affecting their parents, their grandparents, their neighbors, and their friends if they get coronavirus and spread it. It is the same with any community. So members of the Latino community or others that attend a large event like this are not just making that decision for themselves. It can lead to community spread of the virus. And so every decision that we make as individuals reflects on our character, reflects on our morals. Because we are making decisions not just about our own health and safety, which people, of course, should be empowered to make. Everybody should choose how we live their lives and what risks we take. I don't go jumping out of planes with a parachute, and I don't go bungee diving. I have friends who do. That's their decision. It's not mine. I totally respect that. This is about putting others at risk. And just like drunk driving, if you're drunk and you want to do an arcade driving simulator in your home, more power to you. But if you're drunk and you get in your car and you kill an innocent child, that's on you. And the same thing with coronavirus. While, of course, every Coloradan and every American is empowered to make their own healthcare decisions and have bodily autonomy and make their own decisions about the risks they take, it is not your right to put others at risk and drive drunk or risk spreading coronavirus to those who are most at risk. Thank you.